Is the F1 26 game going to happen? There has been no official confirmation yet from EA. In fact, quite the opposite. EA retracted a confirmation that they had triggered the extension of their F1 game license deal earlier this year. But at this present moment in time, as I post this video, there is an active job posting for a new job at Codemasters EA for EA Sports F1. And of course, if you've been paying attention to the news, all of this is under a big macro layer of EA as an entire company being bought out in the largest ever private equity buyout valued at $55 billion. So this video was already something I was planning anyways before this big news came out about EA's buyout, basically, because around this time of year, it's actually the best time to talk about next year's F1 game, because at this moment in time, if there is going to be a new F1 game, they are already currently developing it, putting in the foundational blocks, and that is why this run now from now going into October to the end of this year is actually the best time to put out some discussions about next year's game, be it game ideas, just talking about the game in general. But now with this big news of EA agreeing to be bought out, that also adds an extra layer to this, and I feel like, makes the video even more relevant to really talk about, because EA being bought and going from a public company to a private company is quite a big deal. If you don't know what the situation is with the F1 game, by the way, Codemasters still make the F1 game, but EA own Codemasters as one of its studios under its wing. So EA being bought will affect Codemasters and the F1 game. In what ways? We don't truly know at this point, in the same way we don't know what it's going to mean for any of the titles that EA has under its wing. But let's go through this first bit of news. They're going to be acquired by an investor group, including the Saudi Arabian Sovereign Wealth Fund, PIF. Obviously, you might be very familiar with PIF being involved in many other aspects of business, a lot of sporting business. And then along with this, in this investor group is another firm managed by Jared Kushner, which is Donald Trump's son-in-law, and a private equity firm called Silver Lake Partners, and the entire deal being valued at $55 billion. So let's be real, this entire group that is buying out EA is a little bit questionable for many, many reasons, which I won't get into because that's not that's not my domain of discussion on this channel. We're just talking about what it means for the F1 game. But away from who is actually buying EA and what that could mean for the entire portfolio, or I don't know, just general what you make of deals like this happening in recent years, basically, EA is going to be taken, if this deal goes through, because obviously they still need to actually get it approved, I believe, and things need to happen for it to go through. It doesn't just happen overnight, but this would turn EA into from a public to a private company, and that is quite a big deal, because right now EA, as a US-based company, they have to publish their to shareholders quite often, with the rules the way the US companies have to operate. They have to publish very often, and so you get a lot of short-term gain chasing because you have to publish to your shareholders so often, and so they get informed of how the company's doing on such a short-term basis. That is why you see EA and other gaming companies chasing short-term bags. They're chasing short-term revenue streams, and that's why you have, maybe these days, on top of just the culture and everything like that with gaming, so much microtransactions or models where it will get people to buy more more frequently, etc., and there maybe hasn't been a lot of innovation in a lot of the gaming spaces, no matter what the genre of game, because a lot of the time it is chasing that shareholder value because they're a publicly traded company. But going private now means that, well, it will mean, hopefully, if it happens, is that they can now think more long-term. They will be able to think more long-term because they no longer have to care about any shareholders. It's just up to them. It's this investment group. It's up to them, in terms of how things are going, basically, because they're the sole owners of the entire company. So they can take more long-term plays and maybe more risks with what they do in their current portfolio and what they're doing with the short-term decisions. Because now, if they make a short-term decision that's a bit of a risk and maybe doesn't improve revenue for that quarter, it won't matter because it would have done before. And what that translates to, why that's important for us, the customer, the gamer, is right now, obviously, we've been mostly as a whole industry shafted a lot of the times. There's obviously a few good eggs out there that have still been making some great games, but a lot of the time, gamers lately have been shafted with, just the way the industry's gone, the way games are made lately, and the practices that happen because of this short-term chasing. But the hope is, and what I've seen a lot of, gaming creator commentators that, mostly cover gaming news. Obviously, my channel is just based on F1, playing the actual F1 game, and I occasionally do these topics. And in recent years, I've been doing more of these kind of commentary discussion videos where I think those of you who tune in have actually appreciated them and enjoyed the actual more serious discussion about the business side and the actual nitty gritty of the F1 game and how these things happen. But yeah, as I was saying, a lot of gaming commentators made this good point of, aside from a whole discussion about who's going to be owning EA, there is maybe a positive there of being taken private, because then they don't have to chase that short-term gain, and that they could maybe make decisions that are in the benefit of gamers, again, that are in the benefit of their customers in the short term, and they're looking for a long-term payoff of, okay, you actually have some good faith decisions for the gamers that you're trying to get to buy your games, and then long-term, that's maybe going to pay off because you have more people coming back to maybe buy your games, or maybe down the line, there's a better way to do, revenue stream systems and whatever, to just first and foremost maybe prioritizing actually appeasing your customer base more. Obviously that's a big if. No one knows what's actually going to happen, but that's a discussion that will affect the F1 game. It will affect every game that EA makes, because now things will change, and maybe that might change EA's stance on how they think about F1, because now we get on to actually a direct link to F1 was this. Earlier this summer in June, initially it was confirmed to Insider Gaming that by an EA Sports representative that they had triggered a 2-year option that was included in the current licensing deal for F1, between F1 and Codemasters, the one they signed back in, what was it, I feel like it was 2018 or 19. For several years, there was a 2-year option on that licensing deal, and it was confirmed to them that it was triggered, and that deal would keep the series going until 2027. So we would get F1 26, F1 27. Based on that direct communication, a story was published reflecting the update. This is from Insider Gaming. But now there has been a retraction of that, because that same representative has said, apologies for the inconvenience, but we've been informed that information we provided earlier today is inaccurate, and we don't have any information at this time. F1 also said they were unable to provide any further information. So that's the EA representative and F1 themselves saying they cannot give any information, which is a bit odd, to be honest. I get it in terms of, that bit of news that we have triggered the contract. We weren't meant to be saying that, so we need to retract it. I kind of get that side of things of, they have a plan in place of announcing these things, or they just want to, or it's just no one's business to them and they don't want to announce it. But it feels odd at the same time then to retract something like that, because it doesn't fill anyone with confidence that, okay, so we might not get a game next year if you're saying this was inaccurate info about triggering that 2-year deal. So that's another layer of, there was this weird confirmation and retraction earlier in the summer about F1 26 and 27. But something like this, let's say EA were actually considering not renewing the licensing deal, or not considering triggering the 2-year extension, perhaps being acquired privately and being taken private, that might change their minds, because EA is still going to be run by, I think it was Andrew Wilson, I think his name is the main CEO of EA. He is still going to be in charge of EA, and their headquarters will still be where it is in Redwood somewhere. Off the top of my head. So nothing's really changing dramatically in terms of the leadership of EA, but the decisions they might make now going forwards, if they're taken private, might change. And that might include, you never know, that could include like, oh, they were maybe quite serious about not renewing the F1 license, but now they don't have to appease shareholders. And maybe, maybe their new owners might pressure or have an opinion on their portfolio. And we know that PIF and Saudi Arabia are very interested in Formula One. They host a Grand Prix. So it might be a case of they're like, oh, we want to keep F1 definitely on the portfolio of this company we've just bought because, we have interests in the real sport, and having ownership of the game and its license is very important to us because then we can make an even stronger link with F1 and that country. Whether that's something that should be right and, whatever is a different discussion. But that is definitely, I think, some dots you can join of maybe this buyout could change this opinion that EA have, or, this reluctance to confirm that we're going to be doing F1 26 and 27. We then move on to the next thing, though, and the added thing of what I think is, what the F1 series has going for it is that F1 25 delivered a strong 27% year-on-year sales increase. Now, albeit that's because F1 24 was received so badly, so this is relative. This is year on year. So this means 27% more than F1 24, but that was already less than 23, and 23 was already less than 22, and 22 was already less than 2021, which was definitely the peak, but obviously that was, COVID affected and etc. And we've already had so many discussions about the F1 game landscape with, the popularity, etc., because of those lockdown years. Then you had F1 22 burning customer trust, etc., etc. But I feel like F1 25 was a very strong comeback for this series. I, for one, I'm still enjoying playing it. The AI are much, much better, and there's still some issues to fix, but it's a world better than we were in 24. Like this time last year, I took a month break from uploading career mode on F1 24 because I had to really decide whether I could carry on for the game cycle and make something of that game, which I eventually did, but it took a whole month of not playing the game to find some motivation again. Whereas this year, there's been no breaks for me. I've been enjoying the game consistently and playing it. But yeah, so F1 25 had a 27% uptick. So if I'm EA and Codemaster looking at that, I'm thinking, okay, cool, we've done well. We could hopefully get another return, if we could get maybe like a 10% or 15% year-on-year increase for F1 26. That would be a positive because then you start to go back up in terms of the sales. And obviously 2026, next year, big regulation change. Big regulation change for the car, the chassis, the engine. We've got Cadillac joining the grid. We've got Audi entering, coming from Sauber into Audi. So there's a lot of buzz that will just naturally happen without them even doing anything. Like the next F1 game is going to be exciting anyways because of all those things, on top of, you hope, new features they're adding, improvements they're adding to the game. So you can see in terms of sales and performance of the game, there would be good reason for them to continue and to do F1 26 and 27 and trigger that extension, because right now they've managed to bring it back up and they could continue that trajectory of increasing sales next year, working on the good foundation and maybe some good faith brought back into the series with F1 25. And then that brings me to the last point is, okay, you have this weird thing about EA not confirming that they're triggering the 2-year thing. You've got this big question mark of what's going to happen with EA being bought out. But as I post this right now, there is an active job posting for advanced UI software engineer for EA Sports. You can't see it because of my webcam. EA Sports F1. There you go. So it's for Cody's because it's at Birmingham, which is where Codemasters is based. And we look at the job listing, usual sort of job listing stuff. If we look at the job posting, there's a whole blur about, what they do with F1, etc. And they're, talking about with a focus on innovation and engagement. We're evolving the ultimate F1 experience for players everywhere, and you could help us take it to the next level. We're looking for an expert UI engineer, will help bring the game's rich 2D and 3D UI screens to life, responsible for all technical aspects, including front-end screens, which is like the main menu, all the menus you kind of see in the front of the game, in-game HUD elements, user interactions, i.e. like my team stuff, everything basically. So they're looking for a new UI engineer or someone to add to the team. And that's actively they're hiring right now. You wouldn't bother hiring for this studio, for EA Sports F1 here on the top title, if you weren't going to do F1 26. So this, going back to this just means this is a weird retraction they made, just because maybe they weren't comfortable confirming yet. Maybe they're going to make a big hurrah and a fanfare about confirming the F1 game will be happening for the next 2 years. Like maybe January 2026, they're going to do a big hoo-ha about, oh, we've renewed for 2 more years. F1 26 is coming, bigger and better with the cars, the Audi, Cadillac, whatnot. So that is kind of maybe a non-issue in terms of them retracting that thing, because clearly they are hiring for F1 26. It's now just a case of what is that going to look like, and that kind of circles me back to the first quarter topic we were talking about: is will EA's buyout now, if it goes through, will that change things going into the future? Obviously, this will take time. So actually, I don't know when this will confirm, when EA will be taken private. So there's a good chance that it doesn't affect a lot of things with F1 26. But if they are indeed doing F1 26, as you could assume from this information, then surely if there is a 2-year option that they've triggered to do F1 26, that 27 is going to be a thing. And maybe that will be the first game that is affected by EA being taken private, making decisions that are actually for the gamer, for the consumer, not short-term financial gain in the hopes of getting long-term financial benefit, because you're just making good games and you're making good long-term platforms that people can come back to and enjoy, and then that way you might earn more revenue down the line, or just making more sales, etc., etc. So yeah, it's an interesting time, I mean, in general for the gaming space, because this is massive. Like, obviously this covers other titles like Madden, Battlefield, The Sims, FIFA, EAFC, all of these. So massive. So it's not even just our little F1 bubble here with you and me on this channel. This is affecting so many other bubbles of gaming on YouTube and in the gaming space and in the industry. And I've seen so many different gaming creators and commentators I follow and like to kind of get their opinion. I've seen so many of them cover this because it's a huge thing. Like, this will actually be one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, private equity buyout there has ever been. So it's a huge deal, and it's I'm not used to. I've been around for a while, been doing this for over 10 years, covering the F1 game. I am not used to the F1 game technically being under the umbrella of big business deals like this. Like, for so many years, you and I, if you've been with me for a while, you've been playing the F1 games, you were used to, this little cool studio in the UK punching above their weight, making the global F1 game out of Birmingham. We were used to that. And then we've been brought into this world of EA and this massive studio, and now these massive deals. And it's just so odd. It's really odd that actually something like this is relevant to us as F1 gamers. But it is, because we're underneath EA's umbrella now with Codemasters. So yeah, is F1 26 going to happen? I feel like it definitely is, but it's also equally odd that they retracted the statement. And for the future, who knows what this buyout's going to mean. But it certainly will change. It's not going to not do anything. It certainly will change everything to do with it. It certainly will change the way EA operates. It'd be odd for it not to, and therefore it will change the way its portfolio of various games operate. But as ever with these sort of commentary kind of discussion videos, I'm really curious to see what you guys make of it in the comments below. I do always, for these kind of videos, go through the comments and just read them and just to kind of get a sense of where people's opinions kind of stand, and that will inform, you know, any sort of new video I do in the future, you know, bringing back those opinions and stuff and referencing that. So do definitely let me know in the comments below what you make of, one, the EA buyout. Do you think it will actually affect the F1 game, or do you think I'm overblowing maybe what it could mean for the F1 game, since F1 is so tiny compared to other games EA make? And what do you make of the whole retraction thing and the job posting? Like, do you think F126 is going to happen? I, for one, I think after all we've seen, I think it is. But I'm curious to see what you guys make of the buyout stuff as well. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video and a little bit of discussion about the F1 game as always. And if you're on your around here, do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys around. Goodbye.